Some bands just play music, but then there are the others, the ones that come along and create a sound so totally new, so jarring that they completely redefine rock and roll. Today we're going to dive into the story of one of those bands, the Jesus and Mary Chain, a band that somehow took perfect pop songs and wrapped them in this incredible, almost terrifying blanket of noise. And here they are. Just look at that. A total wall of sound, a blaze of light. You could almost feel it, right? For 4 whole decades, these guys have been one of the most volatile and for sure one of the most influential forces in alternative music. But what's crazy is that their story, it doesn't start here on some huge stage. Nah, it starts way, way far from it, in the quiet suburbs of Scotland. So that's really the big question, isn't it? How did this happen? It's a story that's all about boredom, rebellion, and, a completely groundbreaking idea that all started in a bedroom with a cheap little 4-track recorder. All of it just fueled by this shared frustration with, well, pretty much everything. To really get the Jesus and Mary Chain, you've got to understand this collision. It's like two completely opposite forces smashing together. That's what defined their sound, right from the very beginning. And you know what? The concept was actually pretty simple, but totally revolutionary. I mean, this quote from Jim Reid says it all, doesn't it? It was the crap coming out of the radio that made us want to be in a band. So picture this. It's 1983. The Reid brothers, Jim and William, are just bored. And they absolutely hate the polished, synth-heavy pop music that's all over the charts. You remember the early 80s, right? All that slick production, the electronic gloss. Well, the Reids, who'd been unemployed for like 5 years, they wanted to make the exact opposite of that. Something raw, something visceral, something real. And this right here, this is their entire philosophy in a nutshell. On one side, you have the melody. Think the Shangri-Las, the Beach Boys, Phil Spector's Wall of Sound, all that sweet, innocent pop stuff. And then on the other side, the noise. The Velvet Underground, the Stooges, even the industrial chaos of bands like Einstürzende Neubauten. Their genius was taking these two things and just welding them together. It was pure sugar-coated chaos. An absolutely brilliant idea. And just like that, they basically invented a whole new genre. We call it noise pop, a mix of that dissonant, screeching feedback with the catchy song structures of pop music. They weren't just writing songs, you see. They were creating a sonic blueprint, one that would go on to influence, countless bands for years and years to come. So they've got this sound they cooked up in suburban Scotland. They pack their bags, move to London, and just explode onto the scene. And believe me, the scene had absolutely no idea what was about to hit it. Calling it a debut doesn't even do it justice. It was more like a detonation. So how long were their early shows? Less than 20 minutes. Yeah, you heard that right. We're talking 20 minutes tops. These things were fueled by speed and just pure aggression. They weren't concerts in the traditional sense. They were chaotic, confrontational happenings. I mean, the way they performed was just unheard of. They'd play with their backs to the audience, completely refusing to engage. The volume was insane. The feedback was piercing, and it would just whip the crowd into a frenzy. Gigs would often end in actual riots. Of course, the press ate it up, dubbing them the new Sex Pistols. And what happens when you get a label like that? Yep, you get banned from venues all over the country. And their manager, the legendary Alan McGee, he got it. He said, "This is truly art as terrorism." And that just nails it, doesn't it? He understood that this chaos, this confrontation, it wasn't a mistake. It was a deliberate artistic statement. It was all about shock and awe, designed to just shatter the sleepy, complacent world of pop music. And then, in 1985, they unleashed it, Psychocandy, their debut album. And somehow they managed to bottle all of that live energy, all that chaos, and put it on a record. It was an absolute landmark album. The critics went nuts for it. It completely delivered on that wild promise. Beautiful pop melodies just drowned in this glorious storm of screeching guitar feedback. The chaos had totally worked, right? It got them noticed. It catapulted them into the spotlight. After Psychocandy, they weren't just some notorious live act anymore. They were darlings of the critics, and right on the edge of major commercial success. But as their star got brighter, those internal conflicts, they started to get a whole lot deeper. And you can see their evolution right here. Through the late 80s and early 90s, they just kept getting bigger. Darklands in '87 was a bit more melodic, and it shot to number 5 in the UK charts. Then Automatic in '89 gave them a huge hit head-on U.S. alternative radio. By 1992, with Honey's Dead, they were so massive that when the BBC banned their song Reverence, it didn't even matter. It still became a top 10 hit. Just incredible. And through all of this, all the albums, all the hits, the creative core of the band, the engine room, it was always just two people, the brothers, Jim and William Reid. They were the only constant members through it all. Just two brothers at the core. But surrounding them, a revolving door of more than 20 other musicians. I mean, think about that. This constant churn of bass players and drummers, it wasn't just about trying to find the right musical fit. No, it was a pretty clear symptom of that super intense and often really volatile relationship between the two brothers. You know, that friction, that tension that powered so much of their music, it just couldn't be contained forever. It was bound to blow up. And that sibling rivalry that was at the very heart of the band, well, it would eventually tear them apart. And it happened in the most public way you can imagine. So let's set the scene. It's September 12th, 1998. They're at the House of Blues in Los Angeles. The show is sold out. It's a legendary venue. Everything seems fine. It's supposed to be just another night on their U.S. tour. But it would end up being their last. So what happened? Well, the brothers had a huge fight on the tour bus right before the show. When they got on stage, Jim was apparently so drunk he could barely stand, let alone sing. And just 15 minutes into the set, his brother William just had enough. He put down his guitar, walked right off the stage, and that was it. The band was over, just like that. And this quote from Jim Reid, man, it really sums up the whole thing, doesn't it? After each tour, we wanted to kill each other. And after the final tour, we tried. It's just so brutally honest. That creative tension that made their music so great had finally snapped. The band didn't just break up, it completely imploded. But here's the funny thing. The band might have been gone, but their music, their influence, it just kept growing. Their song Just Like Honey had this huge second life, thanks to that amazing final scene in the movie Lost in Translation. The genres they basically invented, like shoegaze and noise pop, were absolutely flourishing, and you had bands from the Pixies to Jimmy Eat World name-dropping them in songs. Their legacy was more alive than ever. So for almost a decade, that was it. That was the end of the story. But, you know, with a legacy that powerful, that important, the silence just couldn't last forever. The final chapter turned out to be a resurrection nobody saw coming. And then, in 2007, the absolute unthinkable happened. The Reid brothers got back together to play Coachella. A decade after that, in 2017, they released Damage and Joy, their first new album in 19 years. And then just this year, in 2024, they proved they were 100% back. Their album, Glasgow Eyes, gave them their first top 10 UK album since 1988. I mean, how incredible is that? And that brings us right back to where we started. Full circle. Here they are, still on stage, still performing for huge crowds. The same band, yeah, a bit older, maybe a little wiser, but they are still channeling that exact same raw energy, that perfect, volatile mix of sweet melody and beautiful noise that they invented all those years ago. It's just an amazing story, isn't it? From a bedroom in Scotland to stages all across the world, the Jesus and Mary chain proved that sometimes the most abrasive, chaotic sounds can actually be the most beautiful. Their whole story is just a testament to the power of a truly original idea. So, after 4 decades, the beautiful noise plays on. And it just leaves you wondering, what will we hear next?